right, welcome to Buddy Book Club. I'm Dylan, here with the Aristos Achaean of the podcast world, a prince in my eyes. Keith, welcome, buddy.
Thank you. I don't know what you just said. But
What? You don't remember that from the book, the Aristos Achaean? It was like the best soldier in Greece or whatever.
Oh, yeah, totally. I picked up on that.
Achilles would be like, I'm Aristos Achaean. Well, whatever. Let's actually tell people what book we're reading first, I guess. Keith and I are here to break down some bestsellers. This week, we're going to be discussing Madeline Miller's first novel and Orange Bowl award winner. No, Orange Bowl. Orange Book award winner. It had won some award. Look it up. Involved in Orange. The
Orange
book
Prize for Fiction.
The book is Song of Achilles. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out to us about any past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter or Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify, so please download and subscribe. And with that out of the way, Keith, this was an interesting book. I'm glad we read it.
Dylan, I feel like you don't introduce yourself.
I'm Dylan. Hi, I said it.
Oh, do
I
you?
said I'm
All right.
Dylan. Yeah.
T-Man, okay.
But Song of Achilles, actually, I learned this from watching a video of Madeline Miller. So it's sort of obviously the story of Achilles in the Iliad, I guess we should start here. What's your knowledge of like Greek mythology / like Iliad and Odyssey? Did you read those in high school? Were you actually participating?
No. I think Odessa or something.
The
like
Odyssey?
Bangs the mom or something. What's that one?
No, Oedipus.
Is that the same thing?
No, different.
That's in a different region.
Same, but different.
So I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing. I honestly, hand up, and I gotta get this out in front of this real quick. I thought this wasn't fiction. I thought it was all true stories.
It is true. What are you talking about? I mean,
is it true? I still don't know. I'm pretty sure it's fake, but I thought like Achilles was a real person. But you know how back in the day people were like divine if they were led? They're like, oh, that guy's like, he's from God, even though he's
like
just a human.
Jesus, you mean?
Well, I'm not saying Jesus. People were like, the emperor of Greece was a god. And
yeah, people think like Alexander the Great was divine or something.
So that's why I assumed Achilles was like just this badass fighter that actually happened. And then obviously they like kind of made his story a little bit more extravagant than it really was, but whatever. So it's bullshit. It's not real. it's bullshit.
This is amazing that you had the same reaction to this in City of Thieves, and this is about Achilles, and City of Thieves is about like someone's grandfather in World War II.
They both are lying to me. I thought they were real.
Well, I can't speak to the truth whether Achilles are real or not, but I don't think so. But the Iliad is real, the story itself, so I assume you did not pay attention when the Iliad and the Odyssey was read in high school, and I'm not faulting you for that because neither did I. It seemed very confusing. It was written in Latin and translated to English. I didn't really understand it. My knowledge is pretty much based on the movie Troy and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which is like a take on the Odyssey. That's about it. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I appreciate that we're both coming at this from like a very basic understanding. And I apologize to listeners out there if you guys are like, these guys are complete idiots. But hey, we are. Whatever.
This wouldn't be the first time or the last time.
And we're coming at it from fresh eyes, which is great. Completely fresh eyes. It might be the longest book in the making, actually, because the Achilles was an epic poem of the life of Achilles. However, its author, Statius, died during the writing of the second book late in the 1st century AD. So it feels like Madeline Miller just like picked it up from where he left off. But this is going to focus on Achilles and Patroclus. Yes, I said it right in my head and I didn't even write it down. And their journey together through the story of the Iliad. It's kind of like looking at the same story from a different lens, which I like, except I've never read the first one. Normally, we'd like to get into a libation here. The Greeks are down with wine, which I am also totally down with, unless it's being ruined, which they do at one part of this book. So I might have a little bit of that, or maybe some honey wine, aka some mead, which is what they give as a gift to the gods. But if you've ever had that, it's pretty gross, actually. Before we get into the categories, since the wine is flowing, I have a hypothetical for you.
Go on.
What do you do? Be known throughout history as one of the finest fighters ever, basically a superhero, but die at the end, or lose your powers completely and just live a normal person life.
If we put that in like today's day and age, and you said you become a billionaire and you like live it up until you're 60 and die,
No.
Okay.
We're
Fighting?
talking,
I don't care. No, I just live a regular life. I don't.
Well, maybe not fighting because today's day and age doesn't work, but be epic. Achilles is known.
Yeah.
I mean, we have these Achilles heels that are talked about. So
Yeah.
would you want to be like a Keith's heel? Maybe a Keith's. What would you be? What part of your body would you be?
What's my weakest link on my body?
Yeah, I got a Keith areola.
There's a long list of that. Yeah, I don't think fame or glory once you're dead is really that great. It'd be the same as like this podcast. Once we both die, blows up. Would you care? No, I wouldn't care at all. I'd be like, all right, well, I'm dead already. I'm in the ground. So
Yeah.
I'd much rather live a normal life and just have a normal life than be like, hey, once you're going to die early and then you're going to become famous, where you're not going to be able to see any of that. It's like, okay, that doesn't matter.
I'm with you. A, I'm a boring person. And B, I have not so much pride and hubris that I would probably be just fine with living a farmer life and being not a superhero. I'm happy being Clark Kent. I don't need to be Superman. I'm chill. I'm chill with that.
You're Clark Kent. Jeez, okay.
Well, I'm just using that as an example. But, I reference that because there's a lot of prophecies in this book. And that's kind of the big thing, like Achilles decides at the beginning, right, is, his mom says, do you want to do this? Achilles obviously is going to go for it. He's a gamer. We're not gamers. We're living the simple people life.
Well, like, if I'm back in those days, I might do it. Know why? Because, like, there's nothing else going on. It's either you fight or you just live on a farm and, like, lucky to get a nice crop is like your best thing that can happen to you.
Yeah.
Like, we can drink wine this summer because we got like a nice like set of grapes. Like, that's the best thing that'll ever happen to you. So I might as well be fighting or doing something. Back then, yes, I'd go with what Achilles does. Now, no.
He would have been a king otherwise, though. So he would have been living pretty good. I don't think he would be worried about like daily building rakes and like putting grass on his hut. Let's quickly get into our favorite scene from this book. I know we didn't really give it a lot of love at the beginning in the summary, but that's fine because we're going to get into it here. So, favorite scene from this book, I have a couple, but I'm interested in what you have. Did you have anything for this part?
Yeah, I had a couple too. I liked the first is the centaur training, which I thought was classic.
Great montage moment.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be perfect for a movie. It was a great hero's journey, but kind of a different take on it. First off, right when a centaur is introduced, I don't even blink an eye. I'm like, yep.
Down. Totally down.
Something that was great about this book is anything that happened, you're just in for it. I'm like, yeah. Obviously, there's a fucking centaur that's training them. Like,
also, just when you say centaur, I got to shout out to my boy Ferenz. What's up, brother? How you doing? Go on.
Do you know a centaur?
Yeah, from Harry Potter. Ferenz. He was chill.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. Which is funny because I said they reminded me of the Hagrid cabin.
Nature bound.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The other two, sorry, I'll touch on them quick, was the Agamemnon sacrificing his own daughter. I thought that was pretty legit. It reminded me of Game of Thrones, which this whole book now, or this whole Iliad series, is just the original Game of Thrones, right? There's like a million characters and families and things like that they somehow intertwine with all of them. In
the aspect of the intertwining characters and, having tons and tons of characters, yes, but original Game of Thrones is actually based off of War of the Roses, which is a thing that happened in like England in the 1500s or something like that. I'm not 100% on that one, but there is a movie, War of the Roses, with Sean Connery. I don't even know if it has anything to do with it, but that's how my mind works.
Oh, okay. But my favorite was probably just all that stuff was really great. All the beginning part was really great just for the ending of Patroclus fight and death. And spoilers, sorry. I actually felt something, and I'm not an emotional person. I actually have emotions. Really? Yeah. And I don't have any emotions.
Would you say it moved you?
It moved me, yes.
Oh, because I was moved earlier in the book, but in a different way.
Something else is moving for you? What, didn't we used to have a segment? What was it called?
Yeah, I was actually going to say that. We used to have like a I got a boner segment or something, like with a joke from Superbad, when he said, I got a boner. Yeah. And I was thinking how funny it would be for this book.
The whole time I was picturing Achilles as Brad Pitt. And it's just like, all right, this makes sense. Like, everything made sense thinking about that and his Brad Pitt. So, yeah.
For sure, and agree. So, the second one you had was when Patroclus decides to don Achilles' armor and go on his little
just like
foray.
Because there wasn't much action until then. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, let's fucking go.
For sure. Like, I wouldn't pick this book up if I thought it was going to be like an action-packed book, which I didn't really know much about it. So, I'm glad because that was kind of, Troy the movie is basically my point of reference. I was like, oh, that movie was awesome. Tons of action.
Right.
Which didn't happen a lot in this, but I agree. Actually, one of my favorite scenes was Patroclus goes Super Saiyan, and he just starts spearing guys left and right. I mean, he has had practice with the shaft, so I get it. But he even kills a son of Zeus. Like, the guy doesn't even fight. He's a healer. It'd be like at the beginning of one of those like RPG games, and you pick healer, and then all of a sudden your warrior strength, you pick up enough items, your warrior strength goes way up. Boom, throwing spears at people. Gauntlet Legends, what up?
Yeah, and my question is should we just be putting soldiers in the ER just so they get used to the blood, the gore? Because Patroclus goes out there and he's just like, yeah, I don't give a shit about stabbing this guy in the artery because I've been healing people this whole time. This doesn't do anything to me. Like this, I'm just so desensitized to the blood and gore. Like, yeah, I'll rip this dude's like Achilles heel out and all these other tendons and all these other things because he's experienced it. So maybe we should be doing that with our soldiers. Am I right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, petition it to the Department of Defense. See what happens.
Yeah.
Another favorite scene for me was when Achilles gets first blood. And this was more of just like for cinematic purposes. I thought this would be beautiful because they're coming up with the ships onto Troy, showing up out of the mist, and on the beach they see a bunch of Trojans. Holy smokes, these guys are ready for us. They're about to like loose some arrows on us. And you really haven't seen Achilles fight at this point. Patroclus has talked about how like, oh, he's sinewy as fuck and can throw a spear far, and he's nimble, but you don't see him actually fight. And then I'm just picturing him like on this boat, which looks like some Viking type ship, and he just grabs a spear and absolutely hums it, and everyone's like, oh, that's interesting, but there's no way it's going to reach him. Like, there's just no way it's going to fall short. And it just stabs the guy. Like, the camera's on the spear as it's turning, like an NFL Films movie. Boom. Spear lands in the guy's chest. Eruption. So I really like that, just to like get the whole Trojan War really going, even though it slows down after that and takes 10 years. But
it's like Randy Johnson walking out to the mound. You're like, wow, this dude's 6'10", he's a lefty and supposed to throw a sidearm, and you're like, oh, he looks crazy. Then he throws like a 99-mile-per-hour fastball, and you're like, holy shit, like this is the real deal. That's what Achilles was.
And then a bird blows up when he throws when he throws the ball. Yeah. So when Achilles shows up on the scene, I dug it. Let's jump into some stock up, stock down. Stock up. What do you got?
I'll go first one here. Varsity Blues dad, stock up.
What?
I'm not sure.
I don't want your life.
But basically, the Varsity Blues dad was like pressuring him to be better at football and commit to football and do all these things. Achilles' dad kind of needed to do some of this, right? You got the best son of all time at fighting, great at war, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to go off and hide and then dress up as like a woman and get secretly married and live this whole different life that you don't even want to live just to avoid fighting, and you're the best at it. You need someone to motivate this dude. Like, what are we doing, Achilles? Like, you're not fulfilling your prophecy. So someone needed to go in there and give a little bit more Varsity Blues type dad material to this guy, and not just let him kind of whimper off and just kind of cower and hide.
But he knew his son was going to die.
Everyone's going to die in this life, kid. I'm sure there's some Greek quote we could pull here. Not everyone dies, but not everyone lives.
It's not like Mox's dad from Varsity Blues, which I'm so glad I remembered that guy's name. Mox. It's not like his dad knew. He was like, okay, you're going to go to Texas and then you're going to die. Like, you're gonna die in a football game.
That's what they pretty much did on the football field.
That's true,
so,
actually.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
John Voight was a little crazy out there. Well, you talked about him, Achilles' father, dressing his son up in drag, and that's one of my stock-ups, dressing in drag.
Well, that was his mom that did that, right?
Technically, yes, but his dad was simpatico with it. I mean, his mom hides him in some dude's court so he doesn't have to go to war. And, like, here in the United States, we just move to Canada if the draft card happens. But instead, they go through this elaborate ruse. And they actually had to have an Austin Powers moment where someone had to go, that's not a woman, that's a man, baby.
Thank you. So last episode, we didn't mention Austin Powers or Harry Potter. Wow. So I'm glad we've already checked off both those boxes already. I appreciate that.
But it was funny because when I was reading that, and they actually said, this is Achilles, and kind of took off his headdress to let his golden curls go down. I was really like, that's not a woman, that's a man. So RuPaul's Drag Race is soaring up in the market share because Achilles crushed it dressing in drag. He was a beautiful woman and could dance like an absolute maniac. So good on you. What else do you have for stock up?
Not being attractive or smart, stock up.
Go on.
Oh, I know a little bit about this, D-Man, from experience. However, Patroclus at the beginning of the book is like, yeah, my father hated me. I'm not attractive. I'm not smart. I'm not special. And then Achilles' then future wife, Didyma?
Didyma or something like that? Yeah, whatever. Didymia. No, it's Didymia.
She confronts him and just shits all over him.
She does.
Is like, why does Achilles even like you? You bring nothing to the table. You're ugly as shit. Which is seemingly true, but, this seems like this is a nice little, it doesn't really matter. You can get the best looking dude, and then he bangs that girl too, Demetia, when she's pregnant, which it didn't make any sense to me. I have no idea why that happened. Someone needs to explain that to me. But
and it wasn't addressed, so.
Hey, you know what? This is the real hero story. Not being attractive, not being smart, you can still rise to prominence. I appreciated it. Stock up.
And he's the hero of the Myrmidons, or the best of the Myrmidons. Okay, I agree with you. Stock up for sure. Being unattractive. Beautiful.
Or smart. Not attractive or smart.
I think she was just being mean because he's definitely smart. He was a doctor, pretty much.
But his dad in the beginning is like, you're not clever, you're not smart. And then the reason he gets kicked out of the society or whatever is because he wasn't clever enough to come up with a lie.
Yeah. But that's not being clever. That's just him being honest. He's just a good person. He's just an honest, good person. Because even Achilles is like, why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you do that? Why didn't you pretend like he attacked you first? He's like, I don't know, man. I just tell the truth.
Let me ask you this, though. From Didyma, I'm not going to completely butcher that name still. If from her perspective, do you think this homewrecker is a good, honest person?
No, for sure not.
Steals her husband, then takes her baby, and is like, see you later, I'm out.
No, they don't take the baby.
Well, by proxy.
They kick her out of her hometown. They're like, you got to go live somewhere else, peace. I'm
ruins her
taking
life.
your man's.
Yeah.
It's all about perspective, so each person's perspective is going to be different. So yeah, I'm on her side if I'm thinking about it from her perspective. Like, she was about to have Achilles. That's awesome. And then this homeboy comes in and just ruins everything because he's got a better dick than she does. Simple as that.
That's fact. That is fact.
Stock up for me. Human sacrifice. I know we talked about that sacrificing your daughter, like, not so cool, but they would have never made it to Troy if there wasn't a sacrifice of the girl, So
yeah.
They would have never made it there. The whole thing would have never happened. The gods wouldn't have been appeased. Sometimes cutting a couple goats up isn't going to do it. So human sacrifice, it might actually change things in life. Think about it, guys. Think about it. Stock up.
In Game of Thrones, spoilers, when, I don't know the king's name, but the king burns his own daughter at the stake there.
Yeah.
For the same reason. Were you for or against that, though?
The Red Woman and Stannis Baratheon.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yep.
Was I for it? No, I was not for it.
It's the same idea.
Yeah,
same
but
idea,
theirs
right?
seemed a little iffy. Like, the gods are very opaque in Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. It's most likely not, but potential. There's definitely some mythical stuff which would make you believe it. But in these situations, there's literally gods hanging out at the bonfire. So I'm pretty much believing that gods are real, considering, like, yeah, my dad just said to kill this bitch so that we can get on the road. It was like, oh okay, cool. Like, it's not a prayer that comes to you. It was like a real person.
True. Although the Red Woman was doing some pretty legit stuff in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
She just was like going and killing people as like a cloud. And
she had that tar baby from Fern Gully come out of her vagina and kill people. So that was crazy.
I don't know what was going on there. Yeah.
But we're not talking about Game of Thrones. We are talking about Song of Achilles. Do you have any other stock up?
Spite. Again, from last week. Spite is again another purchase.
We need to get you on Mad Money with Kramer.
Yeah. I'm 100% on Achilles' side, by the way. So he goes in front of everyone and is like, yo, this Agamemnon dude is like stealing my honor. He's not doing shit. I'm the one that's leading this army. No one backs him. Not one person. It was complete bullshit. I was pissed. I was like, where is everyone? Why are we not backing the guy that actually leads the army here? No one backs him. And then he's like, all right, I'll see you later, guys. Kick rocks. I'm not helping anyone here. And then people were like whining that, oh, why don't you come save us, Achilles? No, fuck that noise. I'm 100%. I was actually pissed. I was like, no, Achilles. I'd almost turn and go to the other army. I'd almost go into the army and be like, hey, I'm fighting for you guys now. That's how pissed I was. Like, he's the best dude in the game, and you're just being like, well, whatever. This dude's a king, so I don't care. It's bullshit, D-man.
I don't know. I'm just saying, you're sitting there, you're dying. Like, you're just a normal. So talk about perspectives. I'm just a normal fighter in the Greek army. You know, I've been here for...
Then I would have stood up for Achilles.
I've been here for 8 years, and this guy who's an actual game changer, it's like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's on your team, and it's the playoffs, and he's refusing to play because he got into a fight with ownership. It's like, boy, we're dying out here. We are literally dying out here. We need you to step up and drain some threes.
So it's kind of like the Scottie Pippen
side of 100%. A billion percent.
Pippen basically was like, you disrespected my honor by not letting me have the last shot and sat out, right?
Yes. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. It's
the difference is they could like literally win without Pippen, which they did. They won the game without Pippen shooting that shot. But they can't win without Achilles. Achilles is the whole team. So it'd be like disrespecting Michael Jordan and then not being like, hey, bud, you're actually our leader. I apologize. Let's get back into this.
But then you realize it's Michael Jordan's all about himself here, and he's not about the team. Because he's about his own reputation, his own legacy.
He's not sending his boys out to die, though. He's not sending his own guys out to die.
Oh, the Myrmidons don't. Well, the Myrmidons don't fight.
He kept them. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, they chill. They were like, I'm not letting my boys die. So that's fine. I'm fine with that.
I guess so. But in the whole thing, you're still Greek at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's why I'd go join the
Spite,
Trojans.
Fine. I'm cool with Spite. I think the stock is pretty flat. If you're buying stock on Spite, then that's fine.
I continually put my 401k into the Spite side of things. That's literally, I just keep on putting money in there.
My last one, it was kind of touched upon in terms of stock up, was Stories by the Fire. And at the 2-year mark, they're basically moved into Troy. So they create kind of a camp lifestyle. Nightly chats around the dinner fire, wine, followed by s'mores, and stories of the gods. So they sit around and tell stories of the gods, which if we were camping, been camping a couple times, you'd tell like ghost stories as a kid or something like that. And it would kind of spook you out. But at the end of the day, you're like, oh, there's no ghosts. Like, I'm good. But here they're telling stories of the gods. And it's like telling a ghost story, but there's a ghost sitting at the fire with you because Achilles is sitting there and he's pretty much a god. So, it's just so crazy because you're telling these god stories and it's like, they're totally believable because gods are definitely real. We see this happening right here. It'd be a Casper sitting at your campfire and you telling a ghost story and he's like, oh my God, that's so true. Ghosts totally do that. That's totally a ghost thing. So
it's like a stand-up comedy bit. Yeah, it makes sense.
So I'm down. Stories by the Fire just got stock up because they're real now.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, the stock's already pretty high, but hey, you know what? We think it could go up a little bit higher. I don't hate that.
I am selling s'more stock. Totally overrated. S'mores are extremely overrated. Don't at me.
I mean, the problem with s'mores is it's very, very hard to make a perfect s'more. That's the issue.
That's true. And it's also interesting how you say s'more.
Yeah, we've had this discussion literally at next to a fire pit for Magic's wedding.
Right.
We literally had this discussion.
This conversation.
God damn it. The last one I wanted to touch quickly, and it's more of an apology from last week's episode, was ankles and necklines being attractive.
Oh, I was going to say that.
Hand up. Last book, I talked down about it. I was making jokes. And then we go to this book, and it's literally, that's all they talk about, how fucking attractive ankles and necks are. Yeah. And I'm like, shit. Like, it's on me. I apologize. And for anyone out there that I offended last week, I apologize to them as well.
We all accept it. Thank you. Because I'm a big ankle guy. And not like big ankles, but you know what I'm saying. So let's get into stock down. What do you got?
Yeah, stock down, CDC regulations, stock down. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we have one anti-vaxxer on the line here with D-Man.
What?
But I'm not that
not
type.
True.
But we've already, I don't know, D-Man. I think we proved that.
I was a breakthrough case.
There's a huge plague going on in the campground. And Achilles is like, all right. Let's get everyone together. Let's get in a tight, confined space with everyone. And let's all chat it out. Let's all talk it out.
There was no social distancing. Although he did say that they went to he took the Myrmidons to like a different watering hole than everyone else. So he did do some social distancing. He parked at the end of the parking lot as opposed to the front of it.
This is when they come all together
to
discuss. And then seemingly the plague just goes away. So CDC regulations and D-Man's anti-vax theories stock down.
Fair enough. I'll take that shot. Stock down for me, the United States education system. So the problem is, the United States is really bad in like math and sciences, which is
How dare you?
which is shameful.
First off, how dare you?
Besmirch our good country. But people love that first newsroom episode. Oh my God. When he starts shitting on the United States, people love that. But it is true. We're not very good at teaching people. When they're with Chiron, we're talking Achilles and Patroclus. When they're with Chiron, they're not only learning math and sciences, but plant identification, tracking, carpentry, cheese making, medicine, fucking surgery, all by a horse. They're being taught this by a horse.
Oh, a centaur.
Half
How dare
horse.
you? How dare you?
But
Again.
so he's not even fully human. So we have, an education system run by full humans. Why aren't we learning, these important life skills? People are like, oh, I graduated college without knowing how to write a check. These guys can identify plants and build rocking chairs to eat the cheese they make on. That's living. This is living. U.S. education system, stock down. I'm selling it.
I like how you use "we're so behind" is that people don't know how to balance a checkbook and write a check like that. Oh shit, that's the one thing we've been missing this whole time. Come on, kid, that's a little bit antiquated.
Basic financial knowledge, whatever.
Yes. Okay. Agreed. You had me at cheese making, so let's be honest. All great points. I agree.
Any other stock downs you have?
Stock down. Last one here. Destroying boats. A lot of history behind this of commanders showing up with their army and burning their own boats as a way to motivate them and say, like,
that's
yo,
true. That's a good point.
we're not leaving here unless we win this shit. So basically they were motivating them by attacking them to just try to destroy the boats. That was like the worst strategy. Like if you destroy the boats now, it's just like, all right, all hands on deck. Now we got to win this. Otherwise we're not going back. So didn't make any sense. Terrible, poor strategy.
Interesting, because I think I might have had this in hate. But you're talking about the Trojan War strategy of destroying the Greeks' boats. And associated with that, when the Greeks initially arrive, they pretty much storm the beaches without any issue because there's no fortification on the beach. So the Trojans can't do anything once the Greeks get like within range. So they basically allow the Greeks to establish a beachhead, setting the blueprint for Eisenhower and Montgomery for D-Day. But what the fuck was the king doing? He's had years preparing for this war. What was he doing not building pillboxes on the shore so his archers can just take shots, like put catapults out there, take some ships down? I mean, artillery. Have we heard of it? Use it. That you just let the ships get onto shore. Number one rule in warfare, don't let them establish a beachhead. Number one. That's where we're at. And what's his name? Prius? Whatever the king's name is. He just lets them. He has no installments on the beach. It makes zero military sense. I didn't understand it. I was waiting for it to be like this huge battle for them to get the beach.
Yeah.
The launching of 1,000 ships. Oh, that's got to be crazy, and World War II D-Day is like, oh, haven't seen anything like this since the antiquities. And it's like, no, we just like got on the beach because like Priam, whatever, didn't put any installments in there. No big deal. Now we have a 10-year siege. Troy, get it together.
Isn't the strategy there that like their castle or Troy itself was impenetrable? You wouldn't want to raise a ton of resources outside
because the castle's impenetrable, you don't have to like build internal defenses or stuff on the walls or whatnot. You just use the wood from the land and you build defenses on the beach. I mean, let's not get into military tactics because I am by no means a professional here. But basically it seems pretty simple. Do you want to be sitting on a naked beach or do you want to dig some fucking foxholes?
Yeah, that's you're right. When you're right. So military overall strategy way down.
Other stock down I had was a couple quick ones, so I'm going to go through them. Animal sacrifice. We talked about human sacrifice, stock up. I'm in. Animal sacrifice, stock down. They wasted, 100 sheep? That's just wasting good food, especially when you're in a siege situation. Like, food's not coming easy. 100 sheep plus...
Are sheep the same as lamb, by the way?
Lamb's a baby. Lamb's a baby sheep.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yikes. So when you're eating lamb, you're eating tasty baby lamb.
Jesus.
So they wasted some food, wasted a bunch of good wine, and some pomegranates. I didn't like any of it. So animal sacrifice, I'm way down on, unless you're sacrificing it to then eat, in which case, stock way up. Also, the idea of Achilles' heel. I was always told about this Achilles' heel. That's why we have one. I was informed that this Achilles' heel meant something. But in the book, he just gets shot with an arrow through the heart.
I liked it. I like the way they did it in Troy. Also, I think she was trying to do a similar. You remember Troy? I just actually rewatched Troy.
Oh, love that. No, I mean to rewatch it. I did own it at one point.
Spoilers, but like in Troy, he gets shot in the heart like 4 or 5 times, and one through the Achilles heel. But like he pulls the ones out of his heart out, and then people come and just see the one arrow in his heel. So they're like, "Oh shit, he got killed by the." Yeah, I like that was the best way to do it.
That's cool.
He's not an actual god, but people also remember that that's what took him down.
And once again, I know no knowledge of the original story. I don't know if the Achilles heel was part of this thing. I thought it was.
So we got this trivia question like a week after I finished the book.
Ask
I
it
went
for
to
me
trivia.
if you don't mind.
Well, the question was, what lake did they dip Achilles in to make him impenetrable or whatever? Story is that he got dipped into some
Yeah,
river
and she was like
or lake.
holding him by the ankle, right?
Yeah, and that's the only place that he couldn't get hit.
Yeah.
So that's, and what was the lake name? I don't remember now.
I have no idea.
What am I? Someone else got smart.
Good,
got it
good
right.
for them. Dude, that's why I love.
And attractive.
That's
smart and attractive.
well, the opposite of what you bought stock in. So
Yeah, you don't want that. We're shorting those things.
for sure. Let's get into some love hate. What'd you love about this book, Song of Achilles? I feel like there was a lot to love. Just quick barometer check. You like this book, right?
Yeah. Again, this was probably like one of those books that I wouldn't have read if you had told me what it was about. And then you read it. I think the audiobook did a really good job of it too.
Great.
I don't know if I could get through it without it because I would have a really tough time reading the actual names.
Yeah.
And I would be struggling very hard to keep track of
The guy's voice was really good too. Just maybe a peek behind the curtain. You like to listen at 1.2 speed? Is that your thing?
Yeah. Yep.
Is that book specific or at all times you listen to that?
I did it for one book, and then I forgot to turn it off, and now all I do is 1.2. I don't notice it at all. Usually people that are good at or reading don't talk fast already, right? They're like, so they're taught to talk very slow and pronunciate every word. So you don't see them. You like that?
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't talk at this speed. This is how I talk. I talk this fast. 1.2 is slower than this.
Yeah.
So.
If you need to put your speed at like 0.75.
Yeah, that's right. Giddy up. I also just drank a full coffee, so I'm talking real fast now. But
Oh, it's so good. You're like Jerry Seinfeld after he drinks some caffeinated tea. I agree with you that the audiobook is really good. I do think 1.2 might be a little fast. 1.1 worked for me. So that's what I went with. But I did appreciate that heads up because the guy does talk really slow. But I think it's good. If you were ready to listen to it at that, it's fine. 1.2 just seemed a little too fast for me to catch. But okay, so what'd you love about it?
very easy to get lost in the world, from water gods to centaurs to dressing in drag. I thought the love story was a little long at first, and I was like, all right, this is pretty interesting, but like, all right, can we get to the point? But that made the payoff way better because you actually felt, like I said, I actually felt at the end. I was like, "Oh shit! This death actually meant something." And it was hits way harder when you had that whole big long story beforehand. Otherwise, it probably doesn't hit as hard. So I actually really like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was great. And the thing you first said about we don't know a lot about Greek mythology. I personally, I mean, I can't speak for you, but I know you like some of this stuff. But I like fantasy novels in general. Mm-hmm. I mean, Lord of the Rings is my go-to, but even movies, Star Wars, those kind of like deep, different characters, lots. I mean, Game of Thrones, same way. But the thing I loved about this book was just the inevitable YouTube black hole, because I read that Chiron section. I was like, wait, this Chiron guy is fucking cool as shit. And I Google it.
The centaur?
Yeah, and I'm looking up, and I'm like looking at the like Chiron Wikipedia page, like, holy smokes, like this is in depth. There was a segment of like how he died in terms of this person did something to this person, which then did this to that. And there's YouTube's and Wikipedia page for all of these people. It's such an in-depth world that I just really haven't experienced. And I probably didn't underappreciated in high school when this was being discussed. It just seemed like work. And I think the names being difficult is a big thing. Maybe we should just make the name simpler. If we made the name simpler, I'd be down. But the way she wove in the gods, and it didn't have to be so much detail about them. You know, it wasn't a George R.R. Martin book where then you have to have a whole chapter on that person. It was like, oh, Apollo, and then you look him up and you can do that. So the YouTube black hole I really liked about it because it helped me learn a lot about this Greek mythology stuff, which I didn't really know about. And there's like so much. It's insane. It's like thousands of years of lore. It's amazing. I love lore. Just love lore. Big lore guy. What else you love?
I'm not a big quote guy, but I had a couple that I liked here.
Oh, you're going to throw some quotes
When
in
describing Achilles, yeah. You can use a spear as a walking stick, but it won't change its nature. That was a fucking badass line, in my opinion. Yeah, you can dress him up, you can hide him, but he's still a fucking murderer. He'll go fucking kill you.
Achilles has a couple of badass quotes, for sure.
There's probably a lot more. I just didn't write them down, but it's very well written.
I think one he says when he's like about to kill Hector. Hector knows he's going to die, and he says like, will you return my body to my father? And Achilles looks at him. He's obviously like so pissed about Patroclus and shit like that. And he's like, there's no bargains between lions and men. I will eat you raw. He's like, oh, shit, bro. That was badass.
He says, I wonder if that's actually from the Iliad, because he says something similar in Troy. Like I don't know if he says to eat the raw part, but in Troy he says that exact same line of like, no.
I mean, Troy.
Yeah. So I don't know if I can credit her, but
maybe we'll talk about this later. But Troy kind of is this book because it's
exactly
so
the same.
Achilles.
The only difference is Patroclus is one looks a lot like Brad Pitt because like they need the payoff.
Well, it's his cousin, I think, in the
and it's his cousin. Yeah. So
what else did you love about this book?
No, and then the only other quote I had: "People that live by a waterfall cease to hear it. It's like his fear for Achilles." He says. So yeah, I thought I like that,
dude. I really like that too, and I actually wrote that one down because. I don't know. I'm a big believer in just things becoming normal. Like humans are such good adapters, whether it be in times of good or times of bad, that they just like go on and deal with it. And like in some situations, you know, you think about like the Holocaust, something like that, like how the hell did these people survive in these horrible, horrible situations? And you just kind of, this becomes your weird new normal. And humans are so good at adapting to that to survive. But then the problem is in the really good times, we don't have, you know, we adapt to those in the same way and like don't realize how good we have it because we just accustomed to them. So when we said the waterfall thing, I was just thinking about like, you know, people living in beautiful places or whatever, you know, you just probably lose appreciation for that. I mean, I'm not even the most beautiful place, but even like, you know, on Cape Cod in the summer, you're sitting out there by the beach like, wow, this is amazing. I get to have this. You get to appreciate that. So I like that quote too. I'm glad you brought it up. Other things I loved was a good prophecy. I'm always down for a good prophecy. So the original prophecy, he will be the Greek army's best warrior. Second, he will gain fame if he fights in the Trojan War. Third, he will die in Troy. It's like, oh, cool, not so cool. But so, you know, the prophecy's there and you're just like, okay, cool. How are they going to deal with this? And then later the fates say that the best Myrmidon will die soon, but that Achilles will be alive when it happens. So Achilles is like, oh, best Myrmidon's going to die soon. I knew that. And then Achilles is going to be alive. It's like, oh shit, am I not the best Myrmidon? The only problem I had was that they didn't really dig into that. It wasn't, they just kind of like pushed it off. It was just like, oh, who's there? But then in the book, a couple times, the slave woman they had, I can't remember her name, Bestia or something like that. Patroclus like goes to her and helps her out or whatever. And she goes, oh, you're the best of the Myrmidons. And it's like not addressed. But I appreciate like the underlying, oh shit, this means Patroclus is going to get fucked up. But they don't even realize it.
I didn't pick up on that. That's a good callback.
Yeah, but prophecies in general, whether it be HP, Game of Thrones, stuff like that, I just love me a good prophecy. The last thing I had, and something that you kind of had touched on, was the thing I loved most about this book was the love, specifically between Patroclus and Achilles. It was beautiful. It was really just like this super genuine love. No one cares for keeping secrets from one another or being offended by what the other person says because like they know their love is infinite and unchanging. It was like, oh, Achilles like, oh, I had sex with her. He's like, no problem. I totally get it. I mean, that makes sense. It's like, oh, okay, cool. And then Patroclus is like really scared or whatever about the war. And he just like straight up tells Achilles. It's not like, oh, Achilles is going to think I'm a pussy. You know, he's just like, no, you know, he's going to love me no matter what. So I found that to be really pure. And I also found the writing was really good. At some points early on, I was like, holy smokes, I get why women in general love
like romance novels.
Romance novels because the writing of like the intimacy between Patroclus and Achilles was it raised the hair on the back of your neck, you know?
Yeah.
So I get it now.
If you've ever read Where the Crawdads Sing, it was very similar writing to that. It was like really, really good writing. I thought this was a much better story though. Like, also because it probably has more like violence and stuff that I like. But
yeah, in her explanation of just like what was going on, she used really like good metaphors and timely.
Yeah, she's super, super good writer. Yeah.
Okay, well now that we said such nice things, did you hate anything about this book?
Yeah, we need to get some hate. No, as someone that carries around a bag full of Catholic guilt, this is the most sensual book I've ever read. So
Central?
there was a lot
What
of...
do you mean central?
Sensual.
Oh,
Sexual.
sensual.
I would recommend this book to someone, but I wouldn't recommend it to my like, parents because I'd be too nervous that they'd read it and judge me. What is this sex stuff you're into? You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'd be nervous. Like, have you ever, like, what do you do with those type of books? Do you recommend them to your, like, friends and family, or is that just me?
I'm like, hey, Mom, do you want to, like, hang out and read 50 Shades of Grey together? Or...
yeah.
I mean, this...
Well, so you've read 50 Days of Grey, so
no,
that'd be more
I haven't.
sensual.
I actually said to you when we first did our first episode, I was like, we need to read 50 Shades of Grey on our 50th episode because I read...
No, we're doing it 69th. We already determined that. Okay, do you not remember this?
I read one page over some woman's shoulder in the subway, and I was physically uncomfortable. Because...
Physically changing, if you know what I mean?
It was not... It was the opposite. The writing in this book was sensual, and it made a lot of sense, and it was romantic and emotional. The writing in 50 Shades of Grey was like, he then thrust her legs apart. It was like, oh my God, gross. Like, it was uncomfortable. So no, not the same. So how I go about this is just like I go about any other book. I just say like, hey, this is a good book. Read it. What do you mean? I didn't think it was that over the top or anything.
That's true. I mean,
there's one sex scene in the whole, and it's not even a sex scene.
I guess
it's
that's
heavy
true.
petting.
Yeah,
he
you're
slid
right.
into third.
You're right. But the thing is, I listened to the audiobook out loud.
Oh, I could see that. If you were listening to that part while you were like, let's say, preparing Thanksgiving dinner and you hadn't seen your family in a while, you might have some things to explain to them.
So Opie and Anthony, who are now like somewhat famous national broadcasters, they were in the Boston guys. They did the song, Macarena. They did a song, this was probably when I was 8. They did a song, Hey Masturbator, for that. Hey Masturbator. Yeah. That song? So they did that. And I had no idea what that meant. And so I asked my mom, and she's like, you're never listening to the radio again.
You can't listen to the radio. If you can't listen to the radio again. She's like, only AM channels for you.
Yeah.
Well, as a serial masturbator.
Cereal? What kind of cereals do you masturbate
Speaking of which, one of the things I hated about this book, and we discussed about it briefly, was in the only sex scene, Achilles didn't reciprocate. I mean, chapter 10. He gets an old-fashioned on his B-day, and he doesn't give anything back. Patroclus is sitting there yearning, and just nothing. Achilles rolls over and goes to sleep. Whatever happened to I scratch your dick, you scratch mine? It was...
Yeah, if you're a god, though, I mean...
Well, he's half god, so he should give him a half-handy. I don't know. A one-handy. But just in a loving relationship... I'm not an expert on this one either, but hey, reciprocate. It's as simple as that, Someone gives you a little love, give a little love back. You make love together. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
That right there is the clip.
No. Do not. All right, what else did you hate?
I already covered a lot of this stuff, but why does he sleep with Achilles' pregnant wife? I still didn't get that.
Didn't understand that either. He wanted to try it. He was like, I'm going to be with this guy for the rest of my life. He tried.
That was another sex scene they described. So
that's true. That's true.
And she's pregnant, and I was like, oh man, this is something.
Yeah.
Patroclus being a complete homewrecker. So I thought that was funny. But I think it was long to begin with. But again, like I said, that was worth it. I thought so.
Yeah, it didn't drag either. I thought almost the beginning dragged, but it appreciated because it paid off. So it wasn't a big sweat for me.
Exactly.
It was one of those things where when we were talking, you're like, "Oh, you done yet?" I was like, "No, I got a bunch, a few hours left." And then I looked down, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm almost done." Like, wow, that was a good story. So yeah. No listener mail this week.
We have one actually.
You've got mail.
It's from Alex from Natick, Mass.
Oh, Alexander.
And yeah, this is actually not about this episode. This was a comment about a past episode, which we appreciate. Keep them coming in. He said during our second podcast ever, Brave New World podcast, that we didn't even mention Equilibrium. I don't know if you've seen Equilibrium.
No, I haven't. Is it good?
Okay, so this is more on me, because this used to be my favorite movie.
Oh my God, don't.
Growing up.
Hand up.
Big hand up. And I apologize to Alex from Natick. Appreciate the email in. This is a big hand up, but just to quickly go over that. So Equilibrium is like, It's similar to Brave New World, so it's a great call out, but it's similar to what Brave New World is, but it's the opposite. Instead of giving, what was it, soda or soma?
Yeah, soma.
To people, it was the opposite, where they basically make them emotionless. So they like give them, everyone has to be drugged up, and they basically, like, there's no war because everyone's like kind of chill, and then certain people all of a sudden don't take it. Great.
Really?
I mean, I don't know if it still holds up. I haven't seen it. It's on actually HBO, so I'm gonna actually watch it.
Does it get a Keith giddy up?
Oh yeah, it's also a very, very big guy movie. There's a lot of fight scenes and stuff like that, so it's legit.
Don't segregate our listeners. Cool. We both like dystopian shit, so I'm in for sure.
That and like The Giver were the first two things that made me be like, dystopian shit's my jam.
Equilibrium and The Giver.
Oh yeah. That's what this book should have been called, but hey.
Or The Taker. Thanks for listening, Rail. I appreciate that, and I appreciate getting new movies. So, hey, reach out to us, buddybookclub.com or at Buddy Book Club Podcast. Hit us up. Let's cast this movie, though. Well, first off, I want a huge disclaimer here. What the fuck, Troy the movie? I mean, we talked about this briefly about the cousin thing, but Hollywood using their heteronormative narrative to change this story is bothersome. Maybe they did it because like China wouldn't allow it, and they were like, oh, well, we get a lot of money from China. But this story is way more interesting than like, oh, this is my little cousin, and like you killed my little cousin. He's pretty chill. It's like this story was so much better. So fuck you, Hollywood.
It made way more sense.
It made way more sense. And that's why
sense.
Madeline Miller said about the story, and this is also something that I read online, just like other people who have assumed in antiquity assumed that this was more, because the like homosexual nature of it wasn't really laid out in the Iliad, but people assumed it based on the writing because they were saying how Achilles was so obsessed with his own honor and his own legacy, and he basically threw that all out the window when Patroclus died. And so who would you do that for if it wasn't for someone that you just like loved more than anything else? They said they were like, oh, these are good close companions, but it was more than that. And I think that I'm on that side. I appreciate that argument, and I'm on that side. So it would have been a better movie, Troy.
And if they're gonna do, they should have done little brother in Troy. If they're gonna do, like, that's the only other relation, like a cousin. It's like, all right.
But we can't, I assume, considering we both listened/read this book, thinking about Brad Pitt, we can't improve upon Brad Pitt as Achilles, can we?
I think the only other one comparable right now would be, because we can't do a Brad Pitt right now, because he's too, I would say he's a little too old.
Fair.
Chris Hemsworth, long blonde hair, basically play the same character he plays in Thor.
Yeah, he's Thor. That's the only problem. You couldn't really do it because he is Thor. Could we do Liam Hemsworth?
I don't think he's as good as an actor.
He's a horrible actor. The not Armageddon movie, the Independence Day movie was maybe the worst movie I've ever seen.
But also in Troy, Brad Pitt like does the accent sometimes, and other times he's just like, nah, never mind.
Yeah,
it was very weird.
It wasn't a great performance, but he looked.
It was very, very weird. Did you cast anyone for that?
I didn't. No, I couldn't improve upon Brad Pitt. I just couldn't do it in my head. So, Patroclus, what do you got?
I did, and this is going to be kind of 6 degrees of separation, but I did Josh Hutcherson from from Hunger Games, rather.
PETA. Yeah.
And that one is Chris Hemsworth's brother is the other love interest of Katniss.
Yeah.
So like there's some 6 degrees of separation there. I thought he was very, very good in Hunger Games. Although in Hunger Games is supposed to be like a guy that's like strong and kind of burly, but he plays kind of a smaller dude. But either way, that would make more sense for Patroclus. Yeah.
The only one I went with, and maybe just because it's top of my head from Dune, but I didn't even see Dune, but the Timothée Chalamet guy is really taken over, and he might be a little too dark and brooding for Patroclus, but he definitely has the I'm not the strong guy in the relationship, my father thinks I'm weak and useless vibe. No offense. I'm not trying to throw some shade at the boy, I'm sure he's a wonderful actor, but that's the vibe,
He became famous because of a movie where he played a gay dude. Literally, that relationship could have been this one.
Oh,
like the exact same thing. It was Call Me by Your Name.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, and the dude that's his love interest in that is Armie Hammer, who's like a tall blonde dude.
Yeah.
So he could be that exact relationship for this.
Yeah, I guess Armie Hammer would be a potential cast for Achilles too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they could just done that as it would have worked.
Yeah. Well, those are our Patroclus. Did you have anyone else that you'd like to throw in there, just for shits and gigs?
Another 6 degree separation I just put for Achilles' mom would have been Annalena Jolie. I don't know why, but she plays some like woman goddess or water goddess all the time. I feel like just makes sense.
Yeah, she played those. She was in those Disney movies playing that.
Yeah,
Wicked or whatever that is.
that's who I thought it was. Like in my mind, who it was the whole time.
That plays. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't really have anyone else I really wanted to cast for this. I thought that was pretty much, if you were a casting director, as long as you got Achilles and Patroclus good, like you'd be all right.
Yeah, that's all that really matters. Yeah.
So would you recommend the book?
Yeah, I thought it was a super enjoyable read. Like I said, I think if I recommend it, I would say audiobook 100%. It makes the story come to life way more. I don't know who I would recommend it to as much, just again, because it's more like a Where the Crawdads Sing.
Well, what's funny is the person who introduced this book to me was the same person who I introduced Mitch Rapp to. But he was reading the second book in here that she wrote, Circe. And I was like, oh, what's this about? And he's like, just kind of starting it. But the first one was really good, and that's how we got here. So I kind of think that, this book is a good one shoe fits all. Like, if you liked the more action-packed stuff, like, this might be an interesting change of speed. This is definitely a book that I would feel comfortable recommending to either gender. There's some books that maybe, for one reason or another, I just say like, oh, I think a guy would like this more, like those Mitch Rapp type, big CIA agent kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the fewer books, like if we were talking about The Last of Us or whatever that one was, I'd be like, this is probably more for women. But once again, I don't know. I'm just saying that's where I'm coming from. And this, I feel like, would relate to every single person just on a different level, maybe. I'm not going to say a big fan of it. I was a fan of it. I'm glad I read it, and I would definitely recommend it to somebody else. It's not in the top 3, I think, that we've read, but it's definitely...
Yeah, I was going to ask, where does it land?
Yeah, it's upper quartile. Let's go with that. Thanks for checking us out. We actually don't have our next book yet, so we'll work on that.
Yeah, we do. The Gray Man.
Of course. I do remember.
The Gray Man by Mark Greaney is very, very similar, from what I've read. I actually saw this on a Reddit post recently, too, to the Vince Flynn series, which is one of our favorites. So, going to give that a try. I think it's like a 10 or 11 book series, so this is the book number 1 we're going with.
Love it. Hit that 20 mark by the end of the year. Thanks for checking us out, and we will talk to you all later. Take care.
Bye now.